You are listening to the Metro South Morning Show on the new WXPR 1460.
AM 1460, the new WXPR. You are listening to the Metro South Morning Show. Peter Czymbor and Mike Paiva here with you on this Thursday morning. Remember, you can live chat with us during the show on Twitter at PM in the AM Boston. Also, be sure to like us on Facebook, show us some love, and subscribe to us on YouTube, the best place to hear archived interviews and content from our show at youtube.com/PM in the AM Boston. Joining us now in studio, we have a very special guest. He is an enterprise reporter with a focus on news happenings in the city of Brockton. We welcome to the program for the very first time, Morgan True. Morgan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Good to be here. Thanks.
If there was ever a good name for a reporter to have, Mike, Morgan True.
Better than Morgan False.
Better than Morgan False, indeed.
Yeah, I never heard that one before.
Morgan, give us a little bit of a background on you. You've been working for the Enterprise for just a little over 2 months at this point, right?
Yep. Started the last week in May, and prior to that, I did a temp gig with the Associated Press in New Hampshire, working out of the State House there. And before that, I was working for the same family of newspapers with Gatehouse Media in Quincy as an intern. And I actually just graduated from Boston University last May. Studied journalism there, and that was sort of how I got out to the East Coast. I grew up in Seattle. I had never been out to the East Coast until college, and so I was on the 6-year BA plan, to be honest, so it took me a little while to finish school, but that gave me a good appreciation for the Northeast, and decided to stay after school, so it's been great.
We're in the year 2013. Did you think that you would be working for a newspaper and print media after your college career, based on the way that journalism and media has been going lately?
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually my focus. I wanted to do community news, and I wanted to work for a regional newspaper. The print circulation is in decline. The big thorn in our side right now is the internet and things like Craigslist. No one lists. The classifieds aren't where you go to find an apartment or a car. There's autotrader.com, and that was a major source of revenue that is, sorely missed in print, but, we still have a strong, something of over 20,000 circulation in print, I believe. And we are growing on the internet. Our site gets over 20,000 unique visitors each day, I believe, enterprisenews.com. And so I don't think that newspapers in print are going anywhere fast. There is still a lot of people who like to have something physical that they can hold on to and, get their news that way. And there is still, despite some losses, there are still a lot of people that want to advertise there. And so, I think that I've heard from people at our company that, for the foreseeable future, the Enterprise is going to be in printed form, and that's something that they do focus more on multimedia journalism and reporting in a college setting now in the journalism schools, but they also really drive home the fundamentals, and that is what goes into print.
And one thing that I like about newspapers with an established history, a la the Enterprise or the Herald or the Globe or anything like that, you can read their news online and get their news via your computer, and it's reliable to you because of the name that is attached to it, as opposed to reading Joe Smo's blog, who really has no journalism credibility to begin with, except that he got bored, was unemployed in his basement in his underwear, and said, one day I'm going to start a blog.
Yeah, it is. It's a legacy and a reputation, and something I'm very proud to be a part of. And I think that's true. And I think that, yeah, absolutely. I think years and years and years when changes that we can't anticipate take place due to technology and other forces, these names and these reputations will live on. And that's just my opinion, but.
Once again, we're chatting with Morgan True, reporter for the Enterprise here on AM 1460, the new WXPR. Originally from Seattle, made your way out to the East Coast, attending Boston University, had a cup of coffee, maybe more than a cup of coffee, reporting in the granite state of New Hampshire where they do live free or die. How fun was preliminary or primary season in New Hampshire? Were you part of that at all? Or did you miss that?
I missed it. I missed it. I've heard that it is something to behold. So I was sad to miss out on that, but the state house is their state house is fascinating. I mean, I believe it is one of the largest parliamentary bodies in the Western Hemisphere. I think only the United States Congress and the Britain's Parliament and India's Parliament are larger. There's over 400 members of the House of Representatives. So it is a large body, and it creates very interesting coverage because you sometimes have these sort of backbenchers coming out of the woodwork to sort of steal the show with something they'll say or do or bills that they'll back, and so it was a good time.
One of these days, Mike, I want to go to a diner in New Hampshire around primary season, have some coffee and a Danish and donut with Hillary Clinton.
It's possible.
It's possible. I've seen it on television. It has to happen regularly.
It does. And so it sounds like she'll be back.
Sounds like she'll be back. Are you ready for Hillary? Isn't that the slogan on the bumper stickers that they're starting? Or I'm ready for Hillary?
Is that what it is?
I think that's the slogan that's popping up on bumper stickers for Hillary Clinton's campaign run in 2016. Am I right on that?
I haven't seen that, but I just cannot believe that it's 2016 already. I didn't realize, it's really getting started early.
Once again, we're chatting with Morgan True here on AM 1460, the new WXBR reporter for the Enterprise. Ultimately, you made your way to the Enterprise here in Brockton. What's been your take on Brockton and the South Shore thus far? Did you have any real knowledge of what the region was like prior to working for the Enterprise?
Well, I did intern for about 4 months in Quincy, and so I had some exposure to the South Shore. I read some of the Enterprise's news and coverage of Brockton when I was there before coming down. But no, I really didn't. I had never been to Brockton before my interview for the position. But I have to say, people in Brockton have really welcomed me with open arms. They've, people are incredibly kind, and they try to be helpful and try and help catch me up on what's been going on because there are a lot of, complex issues facing this city. And the other thing I have to say is, despite the challenges that this city faces, there is a huge amount of civic pride and pride in being from the City of Champions. It's just, that championship mentality is an ethos that suffuses the whole city. And so, lots of work to be done, and it is being done. And but at this, there is also a tremendous amount of pride.
Red Sox and Celtics fan yet? Patriots fan since you've come here?
As long as they're not playing any of Seattle's teams.
Well, the Supersonics no longer exist, so we can scratch
rule
that out.
Which is that I refuse to talk about that.
I was going to say, people in Seattle are still upset that the Sonics are gone. The Sean Kemp, Gary Payton era of the Sonics was a fun team
that's
to
my
watch.
childhood right there. I can't believe you brought that up. I love Gary Payton, huge fan.
He had a cup of coffee with the Celtics just a few years ago, but it wasn't prime Gary Payton. When you think of Gary Payton, you think of the Sonics.
G-love for the glove.
But...
Man, he was great. Sean Kemp, also great. Those tomahawk dunks. But, especially when Ray Allen came to the Celtics, and I just love basketball. That's my favorite sport, and so I am a Celtics fan. Avery Bradley is also from Tacoma, Washington, so I kind of keep an eye on Seattle basketball players as they make their way across the country, in the NBA and elsewhere. And the Celtics are great. I'm not a huge baseball fan. I hate to admit it, but not a huge, the Mariners, being a Mariners fan is sort of like, I don't even know. It takes a strong stomach. And so I do enjoy the Red Sox. And I love the Patriots, actually. I think they have a great team. The only caveat to that is when they play the Seahawks, I've got sports loyalties, it's where you were born, not where you're at all.
It's weird. Unbeknownst to a lot of people around the country, the Seattle Seahawks actually have one of the most rabid, enthusiastic, and loud fan bases in all of football.
Yeah, I mean, they call him the 12th man on the field, and it does. It gets rocking down there. Patriots have great and dedicated fans as well, and, I was actually, I felt lucky to get to do a story on the Jason Vega local product, who I guess just was released due to a knee injury. But
he was with the Patriots in training camp, for those who don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Brockton High graduate.
And just the pride that this city took in him, and the hard work that he put in the circuitous route that he took to that opportunity. I was inspired. I wasn't able to talk to him directly, but I'm inspired by his story, and it's too bad that it didn't work out this far. But he sounds like he's staying positive, and that's a great story.
Jason Vega, a very strong-willed person for those that know him. Morgan, what was the first story you covered Brockton related after being hired by the Enterprise, if you recall?
That is a good question, because we
go through... It's been a whole 2.5 months, but you go through so many stories each and every day.
One of the ones that stands out from early was a situation where there was a rollover accident on Route 24, and the driver walked away from it without injury, and something had happened where he had a pit bull in his car, and it had I'm not positive what exactly happened, but it may have jumped in his lap, and that somehow led to the rollover accident. But the dog also was unscathed, and then led animal control officers and volunteers on a 24-hour hunt for the missing pet, and it was a great story. The pit bull's name was Lulu. They recovered it. It was it was a dog that had been well taken care of. There were some initial worries about the owners, but in the end, they were able to reconnect it with the owner, a woman who lives in Dorchester, and it was a very fun story just because it was trying. It was a trying circumstance for those animal control workers and their volunteers. I mean, they were literally out for a 24-hour period, trekking through like brush. I remember one of the volunteers had scrapes all over his legs, and in the end, they set up a trap that they baited with hot dogs and cat food that lured the pit bull back. And
that's how we get Mike to come to work sometimes too.
yeah. And so I mean, that was it was really good. That was a fun story to cover.
I remember that morning because we had a prolonged listenership that morning of a lot of people stuck in traffic because they couldn't really go anywhere on Route 24.
Where's Lulu?
Where's Lulu was the cry. And that dog didn't get found for, I think it was the next day.
It was early the next day when they found it, if I recall. And it's funny because dog ownership is something people take very seriously out here. People, especially, people really love their pit bulls out here, which, I mean, I think that's true across the country, but I think that's more true on the South Shore, and it's something interesting. The pit bull culture out here is very strong, and not something I was as familiar with.
I'm not a dog owner, but Mike is.
I bet it was nice to cover a story that had a happy ending compared to some of the other stories that you're covering lately.
Yeah, some of the pit bull stories that we cover don't always have happy endings as well.
What are some of the stories from the first 2.5 months you've been with the Enterprise that really stick out in your mind that you've covered? Outside of Lulu, of course.
Well, one story that I've found really interesting is I came in sort of at as the South Shore as a whole is maybe getting to a point where they're turning the corner in the housing crisis and the foreclosure crisis. The last numbers that I got from John Buckley at the Registry of Deeds for Plymouth County showed the entire county foreclosures in the month of July 2013 compared to the previous year down 62%. In Brockton, down only 37%. So this is a city that has some of the swaths of the most foreclosures, of anywhere in the state, and it's been a real struggle. But one of the really positive stories that I want to keep an eye on is the city's the city's receivership program, where through a city ordinance they're able to look at homes that are either that are bank owned or lender owned, and that are vacant or have fallen into disrepair. They're able to send the health department out to look at those for code violations, and if there is code violations, they're able to get it into the hands of a nonprofit or another company who can contract the work to bring it back up to code, to make it livable, and eventually bring it back on the market. And Robert Jenkins, Director of Housing over at the Brockton Redevelopment Authority, and the Board of Health here, some nonprofit groups, and John Buckley have all been really working hard on that. And I think it's a great program because right now with the demand for housing growing and the housing stock just isn't there to get everyone that wants a home right now. This is almost the situation that we're coming to, and Brockton could capitalize on that if we can get these homes back on the market. And so they actually just received a $100,000 grant that they hope to use. It's pending city council approval, but they hope to use that grant to hire somebody to really spearhead those efforts and really hound the banks and to figure out who owns these properties and how they can get them into receivership.
Once again, we're chatting with Morgan True here on AM 1460, the new WXBR reporter for the Enterprise. Morgan, you've been here 2.5 months working for the Enterprise, covering Brockton and South Shore issues. Do you feel the pressure upon you to really know a lot of the complex history of certain things that you cover when you've only been here for less than 3 months?
Yeah, it's a two-edged sword because it's a tremendous opportunity coming in here, having not knowing the history, but also having the opportunity to really cover these issues. I mean, a lot of decisions that were made in the late 90s and early 2000s are still very relevant, and it is difficult at times to try and go back and parse exactly what happened. But I have a great staff behind me and great editors, and so they're helping catch me up to speed. But there's definitely a learning curve, and I'm still I'm not at the, still rising. I'm not at the top of it yet.
Well, you're doing a good job thus far. We're chatting with Morgan True here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. Morgan, you stick with us for another segment?
Sure.
We're chatting with Morgan True here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. You are listening to the Metro South Morning Show. Peter Czymbor and Mike Paiva here with you on this Thursday morning. We'll step aside for a quick breather. Mike Paiva is going to bring you a news update from the WXBR newsroom. Remember, follow us on Twitter at PM in the AM Boston. Live chat with us. Follow us or like us on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/PM in the AM Boston. You're listening to the Metro South Morning Show. Back with more of the program after this.
Very local, very southern New England. This is the new AM 1460 WXBR Brockton, a broadcast service of Azure Media, LLC.
AM 1460, the new WXBR. Peter Czymbor and Mike Paiva still here with you on this Thursday morning. You're listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM. Remember, you can follow along with our program on Twitter at PM in the AM Boston. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/PM in the AM Boston. We're joined in studio this morning by reporter for the Enterprise, Morgan True. Morgan, you're part of modern-day print media where it has to be somewhat digital as well, and you've got yourself a Twitter as well. What does Twitter do for you in relation to reporting?
Well, it's great. I mean, it allows you to provide followers live updates, especially when there's breaking news. You can tweet from the scene. I've seen our reporters use it really effectively. One of our longtime reporters, who's great, Maria Papadopoulos, she was able to during the Keith Luke trial. I was following. I couldn't tear myself away from
I was
Twitter
following
feed.
Maria Papadopoulos religiously during the Keith Luke trial as well. She was inside the courtroom tweeting,
and so that's really changed the game. I mean, in terms, everything was, oh, you'll read about it tomorrow, and now it's what can we read right now? And so it's funny because it's a way to connect. Social media has to be a two-way street. It's a way for you to connect with readers and people in the community. I try and respond to tweets as much as I can, and it's a way to get news. I mean, people sometimes direct message you tips and stuff. So I would encourage folks that would like to follow me. I'm at TrueMorgan_ENT. And yeah, I mean, there's just such an outpouring on Twitter that it honestly helps us stay current. There's a lot of sort of people in the Brockton area that are pretty vigilant about following the scanners, and we follow the scanner very closely too. But it's a great resource.
And we'll tag you on the PM in the AM Boston Twitter this morning, so folks can just click on over to you and follow along. Once again, we're chatting with Morgan True, reporter for the Enterprise here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. You've been working for the Enterprise about 2.5 months, as we established in the first portion of this interview, and you come in just in time for a political season. I actually earlier referred to, before correcting myself, I referred to it as being preliminary season in New Hampshire, just out of pure habit that we have a preliminary election as opposed to a primary coming up in September.
Yep. And it's going to be a great campaign. We have a 5-way race for mayor with lots of really strong candidates. And also because we have 2 longtime city councilors, at-large city councilors, who are stepping down after this, we have an outpouring of at-large candidates, 15. I was actually down at City Hall this morning for the ballot drawing ceremony where the
that
ballot
was yesterday
order.
morning.
I was there yesterday morning, and so the drawing was great, and I got to meet some of the candidates who I hadn't had a chance to interact with before, but. That's what John McGarry, the election commissioner here in Brockton, was saying, is open seats, is really drawing people out of the woodwork to try and, throw their name in the hat. And so it's going to be very exciting.
How open with you as a reporter have a lot of the candidates for both mayor and council at large and different councilor races within the respective wards been with you since you've been here?
Well, that's a good question. I have not had as much of an opportunity as I would like to and hope to in the future to really dig into some of these, the councilor at large race and the ward races. But the mayoral candidates have been good. I feel like I have pretty open communication with all of them, really.
There's Linda Belzotta, the incumbent, Bill Carpenter, Chris McMillan, Ron Matta, and Arnold Greenblatt out of the 5 candidates for mayor here in Brockton. Preliminary in September. It'll be narrowed down to 2 who will go at it for the November election. It's getting pretty heated, this mayoral election.
It is.
Not so much one candidate against another, but a group of people against one candidate.
It's very fascinating. This is really I've done some political reporting before. I was working at the State House, but I haven't really covered elections before, and it is interesting to see an advocacy group, Stop the Power, really going after the only candidate in the race who has voiced it's really qualified support for a power plant in Brockton. And, Stop the Power has been a force in previous elections, and, they continue to be, and so, that's an interesting dynamic to watch, and I've done several stories on that. Ed Byers is sort of the financial muscle behind Stop the Power. He started it in 2007 when I believe the power plant when he sort of became more politically active through the power plant because it was going to be in a part of town that he felt would affect a lot of his employees. He's the CEO of Cindy's Kitchen, which is a Brockton-based salad dressing and dip company that is been quite successful, and a lot of his employees are in the Brockton area, and I think that really drew him into politics, and now he has become a force to be reckoned with. And I mean, just to this point, the last campaign filings that I saw, he has spent close to $10,000 opposing Carpenter, and and it's funny because a lot of the back and forth between the Stop the Power and Bill Carpenter has taken place on the internet, and that has been interesting to watch.
There was just a little bit of I guess there was some legal issues regarding some stuff that had been published on Facebook of all places earlier this week, and a member of Bill Carpenter's campaign team, who's also a lawyer, sent them a nice little letter indicating they wanted it taken down.
Essentially, and it's interesting because Brockton Hub is run by.
It's a Facebook group for those who don't know Brockton Hub,
and it's really grown. It was started by Larry Boyd in August of 2011, and it has 8,000 members, and it's a pretty vibrant community forum where candidates are posting material, and also where really positive campaigns sort of spring up. They just cleaned up the Keith playground, and and so it was interesting to see the letter because it really used pretty strong language to ask that he be more careful with how he moderated the site.
Once again, we're chatting with Morgan True of the Enterprise here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. One thing that I've noticed in your reporting of several city issues in the Enterprise is that you get both sides more often than not in your article, as you should, but you also tend to include someone who appears to be an expert in with whatever the issue is to kind of round out your articles. Is that a fair observation?
Absolutely.
Tell us about some of the different people that are your go-to folks. I mentioned to you off air jokingly, did you go to Stonehill College? Because there is one political science professor at Stonehill College that I feel makes constant appearances in your articles.
It's true. Peter Ubertaccio, I believe, is who you're referring to, and he is the head of the Martin Institute at Stonehill, and, he is a political commentator that journalists go to from numerous outlets. I have tremendous respect for him. I follow his blog, his politics blog, and so he is. Not only that, he's local, so he is a great go-to.
You must get a lot of people calling you during political season, particularly because, let's face it, political season does tend to get a little bit dirty, and there is a fine line, and there's sometimes a question on where is the line between what is fair game and what is dirty. You just must get a plethora of phone calls from time to time from people that are throwing out ridiculous allegations at one another.
Yeah, it's funny. Honestly, some of the most interesting mail and calls and emails that I get are often, anonymous tips, and a lot of them aren't even political in nature, and it's really tough. I would encourage tipsters to include their name. I mean, we're not going to publish it without speaking with you first, but we can't use it if it's totally anonymous. I don't know what people expect us to do when they send in completely anonymous tips that are, sound like they could be a story.
We get stuff here at the station sometimes anonymously, and we just kind of scratch our heads and go, all right, well, there's nothing we can really do with that.
And there's no return address in some cases. There's no way to follow up. It's not useful. But I mean, I do appreciate any engagement. I mean, and as a reporter and journalist, we can investigate anonymous tips, but there's a lot more to go off when people candidly share who they are. And again, we always. Depending on the situation, we can protect sources. So,
life never stops. The news never stops. What's your regular schedule like, if there is one? I'm sure that you're on the phone receiving emails, tweets, whatever the case may be, 24/7 sometimes.
Well, yeah, and wasn't totally prepared for that. Just as a young kid just coming out of college. And it's a lot of work, and it can be odd hours. My editor, Steve Damish, really encouraged me to, we have a schedule and we need to be there certain hours. But for the most part, he said, work the hours that make sense. Work the hours you need to do the stories that you need to do. And so it's really all over the place. I work some Saturdays. I really enjoy it. I couldn't picture a better job, and I couldn't picture a better place to get started. This has been really great, and like I said in the last segment, Brockton's welcomed me with open arms, and I've really enjoyed it thus far.
What are some of the stories that you've covered thus far in your time with the Enterprise that you really just did not enjoy covering? We talked about some of the ones you enjoyed covering in the first segment. What are some of the ones where you said, this is just awful, there's nothing good about this, I'd rather not cover this, but it's my job?
I don't know that there is particular. I mean, there are awful things that we have to cover, but I take my view of that is that we're doing a public service, and if it was, the great thing is that sometimes I've heard people sort of bag on us for only covering the crime, only covering the murders, only covering the negativity, but it's been my experience that we really do try and get out there and cover uplifting stories as well. We just did a story on a wonderful lady at the Campello High Rise who has started maintaining her own garden there, and it looks beautiful, and she's gotten tons of help from the maintenance crews there, and she's growing vegetables and encouraging her neighbors to come down and pick them when they need them. And so, but I guess the hardest stuff to cover is the violence, and and that's something that's hard, and there has to be a reckoning throughout the whole community with the violence that takes place here, and we report it and we cover it and we try and get we try and look at what's being done to confront it. And there's a ton of work. There was a woman, Michelle Barber, who I interviewed. She lived adjacent to where a shooting took place over this last weekend. And what she said is that when I asked her if the city could be doing more to prevent this violence, she said, look, there's not always going to be a government solution. I mean, we need to look at what we're doing in our own lives. And I thought I was really inspired by that. She said that, what are we doing to uplift the people around us? And so I thought that was great.
In this day and age of letters to the editor sort of being ancient and direct messaging via Twitter or just sending tweets tends to be the way to communicate and get your message or opinion across to people who you otherwise may not have the opportunity to communicate with. What's some things that you hear often from people who opine on things you've written on Twitter and whatnot? And do you read the comments underneath your articles sometimes?
I do.
On enterprisenews.com?
Yeah, I would take this opportunity to encourage all of our commenters to come back. I mean, we recently changed it on the site where you now have to log in through Facebook. And we did that so that the commenters would be accountable in some way to stand behind their words. But it has definitely taken a toll on the amount of comments because it used to be prolific, and I would encourage people to come back.
People used to be able to comment anonymously, though.
Yes, but I would encourage them to come back and stand behind their words and still engage with our news. And I would encourage people to tweet at me more because I'm at a loss to answer that because I don't get enough people tweeting at me to really identify a trend or anything. So, get at me. Let me know what you guys think, and I would really appreciate it. Again, it's at TrueMorgan_ENT, E-N-T. And, and go to enterprisenews.com and comment on the stories, read the stories. We love it.
Is it an enterprise policy to have the _ENT at the end of every Twitter handle?
It is. It helps us with Storify projects so that we can look back at coverage for retrospectives and other things. And it also just identifies us that, we're representing Gatehouse Media and the Enterprise newspaper. And so, that is policy.
How cool is it to work for Gatehouse Media, a company that owns many different newspapers outside of the Enterprise? For example, not too long ago with the Aaron Hernandez murder, we saw Gatehouse Media throw a lot of their muscle into some attorneys and getting a lot of information that was previously unreleased in relation to that case, released to the media.
I was very proud of that. That was very cool to see. And I got to shout out my buddy up at the Ledger, Pat Ronan, who sort of was our lead reporter on that. He did some really great work on that. And, I mean, that is a pretty sordid case. I mean, it's really sad. It's a sad thing for the Patriots and for the families and friends of the victim, potentially multiple victims. I mean, I guess he's under investigation for other crimes. But, so I don't know. And what a talented kid, what a waste, what a shame.
We've been chatting with Morgan True of the Enterprise here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, your first ever appearance here on PM the AM. We thank you so much for coming on the show. We hope to have you on again sometime. Anything you'd like to leave our listeners with this morning?
No, thank you for the opportunity, though, and it was great to meet you guys and continue your good work. And, I'd love to come back at some point.
Well, thank you very much. That is Morgan True of the Enterprise joining us here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. You are listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM. Peter Czymbor and Mike Paiva still here with you on this Thursday morning.